Hello and welcome to another episode of Tech About Town, brought to you by Communitech and Elevate IP. I'm Alex Kinsella.
And I'm Allison Peel.
I'm tongue-tied today because it's the last, well, technically it ended. Waterloo Tech Week is over. Yesterday there was a pancake breakfast at Builders Club this morning, which I didn't go to because it's far too early.
Yep.
It's been a week of events. You were at a few.
I was at 5.
5. I was at far too many. Last night a buddy of mine said, "Hey, do you want to come to this one 6 o'clock?" I'm like, "No, I don't." And I'm a social outgoing extrovert. And I was just like,
yes,
I'm spent.
You are.
I went to the opening at Google with Faskin and Mars IF. And
you were at the Small Ideas show yesterday.
Small Ideas. I went to the Innovation Open House at UW, where other than the professors, I might have been one of the most senior people there.
I like to say experienced
people at the thing. It was good. They ate all the pizza, which students will do. It's kind of fun to see. It's exciting. Waterloo Tech Week was really good. I interviewed 2 of the organizers from Hack the North for Beta Kit, which I'll put in the show notes.
That was a great article.
But it's just a lot. September's a lot. There's always something happening every single day of September. And then you guys decided to go back to the old logo.
Yep.
And launch the website and announce a new mission at the same time. So that's a lot of stuff.
Mission, go back to the new logo, host some host some Waterloo Tech Week events, create our own Waterloo Tech Week event, put a breakfast out in 1.5 weeks, 25th of September. We've got our annual meeting thrown in there as well. Then I'm going to throw it in because it's about a month away, but Techtoberfest is coming up.
The AGM is happening in the Tannery Event Center.
No, the AGM is happening in the CAF.
What?
You were close.
Someone told me it was there. Oh, never mind. I'm going to redo that. The AGM is happening. It's not happening in the Tannery Event Center, which I learned recently, even though it would be cool if it was. It's happening in the CAF, which is here. But I was in the Tannery Event Center for Small Ideas with Jordan Jokas.
Yes.
And who else was there? Jordan. Jackie's daughter. Why can't I remember?
Jocelyn Murphy.
It starts with a J.
Jocelyn, come on.
Jocelyn Murphy and Jordan Jokas were hosting that. The KW Breakers were there. It was cool. It was interesting being back in the event center.
Yeah.
Which I now think actually needs a new name. I do think it needs something new. Like Tannery Event Center is kind of like.
But old is good. Logo.
Yeah, that is. But like, I don't know. I feel like it needs a new energy or something. That's me. That's me on that one. But it was cool to be in the space. I have gone to far too many events that I cannot remember all of the events that were in there. I did go to one. It was a joke about had a shot luge. Remember those?
Missed that. I remember it, but I was not at that event, sadly.
No one has shot luges anymore at events, which is probably a good thing. I
feel like there's a few reasons why we don't do that anymore.
For not having a shot luge at event.
100%.
Not related to shot luges. We're back in the studio, kicking off a new series of podcasts.
Yep.
Not a total change in direction, but a little more community focused.
Yep.
Part of the community at Communitech, in addition to members and ecosystem partners and all that fun stuff, are Pro Squad members.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about Pro Squad before we get to our guest?
Yeah, absolutely. So Pro Squad is a group of industry vetted professionals. So we work really closely with various organizations throughout multiple industries that bring a specific set of skills or knowledge to startup founders, scale-up founders, or anybody in general. So we've got legal support, we've got HR support, marketing support, software, accounting, bookkeeping, basically all the things that you can think of. You can see a whole list of our Pro Squad members on our website at communitech.ca. And if you have more information, there's some forms you can fill out if you want to become a Pro Squad member, or if you'd like to get connected to a Pro Squad member, you can do that through the website as well. The bulk of let me change that. All of our Pro Squad members do have some form of an offer for Communitech founders. So it could be some consulting for free. It could be some type of discount, but it gives them the opportunity to leverage these services at a bit of a discounted rate or with some additional support because they're part of the Communitech community.
So Pro Squad.
Yep.
Today we're actually having our first Pro Squad member on as a guest. When you're building a startup, we all know resources are scarce: time, money, people. Unfortunately, that means many founders make trade-offs that might hurt them in the long run. One of the first things to be put on the "we'll get to it later" list is branding and marketing. But building a great product isn't enough, especially in a crowded space or when you're entering a new category where customer education is critical. Where customer education is critical to success. Our guest today wants you to know that you don't have to choose between building a great product and building a solid marketing strategy. Roshni Wijayasinha is the CEO and lead strategist of Prosh Marketing, a fractional marketing firm providing guidance and support to startups and scale-ups across Canada. Roshni brings almost 2 decades of experience from roles at Microsoft, Sony, Kobo, and more, and we're excited to have her in the studio. Welcome to the studio. You're remote today, so you're calling in from Toronto.
That's correct, yes.
So we're really excited about this. We've only had, I don't think we've actually had a Pro Squad member on.
No.
You're our first Pro Squad member
So that's really exciting.
to come on the
nice.
show. So we're very excited about having you here. We're excited to learn more about you. Just to kind of get the ball rolling, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Roshni, and I'm the founder and CEO of Prosh Marketing. We provide part-time marketing leadership in the form of fractional CMOs and fractional marketing directors for tech startups. I'm also an instructor at the Schulich School of Business, where I teach startup marketing in their master's program. I'm an angel investor with the Firehood and a LP with Position Ventures. And I've been an advisor, an EIR, and a mentor to a number of tech startups. I've been in the marketing world for around 20 years. I started in the early days of digital marketing when we called it interactive marketing, and fell in love with really working with startups and fast-growing companies once I had an option of working with a small company out of Liberty Village called Kobo. We scaled and grew that, and from there, I fell in love with the idea of working with companies that were scrappy, that had to figure out things from the ground up, and were able to scale really quickly. I'm also a street artist in my spare time, and I love to work with growing companies and figure out how to effectively leverage a lean budget to grow quickly.
Well, and that was one of the things I was going to ask you, which is around fractional marketing. We hear the term fractional CFO, fractional CMO used a lot. Within startups, I think one of the mistakes a lot of founders early on make, especially first-time founders, is thinking marketing is something we can do when we're done the product, when we're ready to go to market.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that mistake kind of still being made? And where do you kind of fit in with that flow?
Yeah, it's really interesting because as a startup, you have to invest a lot of time in product development. However, if you wait till day one of when your product is ready to start marketing, you have no one ready to buy. And then you've got to wait and grind it out, and you're spending marketing dollars, but not necessarily seeing revenue in. And so if you're able to start thinking about marketing while you're building your product, one, not only do you get a product that customers actually want and have needs for, but two, you're ready to sell on day one, and you can start to bring revenue in once you're spending big dollars. And things like figuring out your go-to-market strategy, things like figuring out messaging and positioning, things like figuring out, what are the best target audiences or segments to go after. All of those areas are places where marketers can play in advance of a product launch.
What do you think about, just kind of in line with that, but there's always been this kind of like mild debate on like beta or pilot projects or beta devices, for example, versus going out and getting like real life feedback once you've launched. So we have this, lead generation funnel that's running, right? So you've got those people to sell to, but what about getting their thoughts first before the product goes to market?
I think it's always really valuable to do small testing with smaller groups before you go live. And one of the main reasons for that is trust and credibility. As a startup, if you go live with a product that's not necessarily ready for market, sometimes you only have one chance to enter the market, and you might get killed in PR or killed with reviews. And so you don't want those things public when you're trying to get your initial customers, because trust and credibility is so important for startups to get their first initial customers. So I would always recommend going with a small group, testing out things, figuring out what works and what doesn't work before you go live and maybe kill your reputation.
One of the things, and I'm working on something else right now, and it's a debate around the traditional marketing funnel versus looking at marketing and customer acquisition as more of like a flywheel, something that's continually operating. Does that ever come up in kind of your world, your conversations?
Yeah, I think it's important to also still think of the funnel, but the flywheel is a great tool to find volume and scale. And so as a startup, one of the biggest challenges I see is really figuring out your mix of channel marketing.
Mhm.
So how many channels do you need on the top of the funnel? How many channels do you need at the bottom of the funnel? What is your mix between brand and conversion? And because no one's ever heard of you, you have to invest in the top of the funnel, because trying to work the people who have already heard about you, that small little group, is going to be harder and harder and more expensive over time. And so if you're not continuously doing brand marketing, it can be more challenging. And so we see this a lot because brand marketing is usually hard to measure. It's not necessarily quick on return on investment. And these are things that startups really want. But at the same time, they still need that trust and credibility, and they need new people hearing about them to fill the top of that funnel. What I've seen over time is around 2 years in, marketing economics actually drop, and it's no longer feasible to market if you haven't filled that top part of the funnel.
Yeah.
And so thinking about it as a marketing funnel is still important, because you need to make sure that you're still balancing your conversion and your need for revenue with bringing in new customers on that top end.
I'm a startup, let's say, and I have no budget, right? No marketing budget. So what would you say would be the best way to fill that top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel through the different channels that we have available?
Yeah, there's so many things that you can do with a $0 marketing budget. I actually wrote a Forbes Communications Council article about that, with a whole bunch of ideas, but a couple off the top of my head is on the awareness side. Think about partnerships. Partnerships just take time and effort to get together with another person, cross-sell to each other's bases, and offer, greater value to both of your customer bases. And that can be a great way to get awareness within a set of people who are really, already your target audience. And the other brand also builds your credibility, because if they've worked with this other brand and company and they've now built a great relationship, if they're now introducing you as a trusted partner, you now have an easier time selling through. So on the top end of the funnel, I think partnerships is a great way to kind of engage new users. Email marketing is not dead, but email marketing is still a tool that can be very powerful in converting people who are already in the middle of your funnel. However, what I would say is you have to be really targeted these days. The days of mass marketing on email channels are gone, and really finding value in what you're providing is probably the most important part in terms of getting email conversions. And then there's social media. Social media is a great tool across the funnel to get new users, as well as engage people who are already active users. And then on the bottom end of the funnel, things like promotions, you can send that out again through email, or leveraging sales tactics like maybe connecting with other customers or referrals or testimonials. Those things can be great ways to convert customers, as well, or loyalty programs. So a lot of opportunities across the funnel with $0 budgets that you can activate.
Love that.
With social media, that's the one that I find I struggle with a lot now. Is it's very fractured, right? So you have people on, a lot of people left X. There's an exodus. Yeah. And but there's Mastodon, there's Blue Sky, there's Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn has become whatever LinkedIn's become, and there's still Facebook. Do you have channels that you recommend, or more actually, the better question might be, how do you pick which one to go for?
Yeah, as a startup, what I would recommend is not trying to do all of the different channels, because you're going to spread yourself too thin. It's best to also just build momentum with one channel and then grow to other channels. And so the first thing I do is look at where my target audience is. If I'm looking at a younger audience, maybe it's TikTok. If I'm looking at a business audience, it's probably LinkedIn. So it's really figuring out who your audience is first, and then working backwards and where they're spending their time. And it may or may not be on social media too. For older audiences, maybe it's on different platforms or different digital sites. So ultimately, it's working backwards from where your customers are spending their time.
Yeah, I'm 49 and I did not list TikTok as one, which is...
Me neither.
I'm not a TikTok.
Not a TikTok person either. It's interesting that you say that. So I had a conversation with somebody last week, maybe the week before, and their positioning was LinkedIn is dead. So as a marketer, a fellow marketer, I totally disagree. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I disagree. I think there's still so much activity and volume on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn can be really great to nurture existing contacts as well.
Yep.
Sometimes you've met people at conferences or at events and you haven't seen them in months, but hey, I saw their post that reminded me of their product or service. Maybe we could work together. And so keeping top of mind with people is a really great way to leverage LinkedIn.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think with the exodus, I see a little more activity even on LinkedIn because, to Alex's point, less people are on X or Twitter or whatever you call it, and so there's not quite as much. Like, I know for us internally, we don't get a ton of traction when we do post stuff on X. We do the odd time here and there, but we don't get a ton when we post it. But our stuff specifically, as a supporter of startups, does very, very well on LinkedIn. So that's an interesting perspective.
You know what really annoys the heck out of me and feel free to challenge me on this, but on LinkedIn, if someone's like, I've put together a playbook to do this, or a workflow to do this, and they're like, reply with something in the comments and I'll send it to you. I'm like, you're juicing your metrics and I don't appreciate it. Just put the link, I'll look at it and maybe I'll comment that I liked it. But otherwise, like, we don't have to play these games.
It's all the gated, right? So I personally not a lover of gated content because
I
oftentimes
don't want to juice someone's metrics.
it juices your metrics, gets you more email addresses for your newsletter that people ultimately end up unsubscribing to anyway. So if you've got an awesome piece of content, share it. And to Alex's point, I agree. Throw the link in and give it to the world, right?
Yeah, and I think that's an example of using the channel for a way that your target audience doesn't want you to use it. And so again, it goes back to your customer behavior, because your customers want to learn things on LinkedIn. You want to be educated, you want to be entertained, and you want to be kept updated. And so if you're gatekeeping that content on LinkedIn, then it's not providing the content in the way that the customer wants to consume it, or your customers. So that goes back to just figuring out how are people using these tools and trying to do it in a way that is best for them.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, I also don't think we can have a conversation about marketing in 2025 without talking about AI. What are your thoughts on AI for marketing? I know there's a lot of founders that look at generative. Damn, I can't even talk anymore.
Generative.
There's a lot of founders who look at generative AI as a solution to turn out content, and whether that is now a video, blog post, things like that. Where do you kind of see that? Is it a tool worth investing in, or do you see that as potentially brand damaging if it's hallucinated content?
Yeah, I think AI is a phenomenal tool for startups to help scale their marketing efforts, but you still need that human touch and intervention. I think that's a common theme across all AI conversations, is that us as humans, we're the people putting in the prompts. And at the end of the day, we also have to review that content to make sure that it is on brand and that it does say the same message that we want it to. But we're leveraging AI in a number of different ways across our organization. One, with clients, we're able to consume large quantities of data and make discovery a lot faster. So what would take, a ton of hours to learn about a client can be reduced down to pretty much a few hours based on ingesting a bunch of documents and getting them to be summarized on there. Another great use of AI is leveraging customer interviews and taking their transcripts and putting them in there and pulling out key themes and finding some of those quotes. So things that were very manual in the past are just elevated with the use of AI. We're also able to take things like client workshops that we've established and take that data from the client workshops and then kind of put them into different marketing models that we've put together. Again, ultimately reducing time and effort and the cost for our clients. But on the implementation side, there's so many other opportunities. Like you mentioned, content marketing is just one part of it, but there's also predictive analytics, where we can kind of predict where a customer will go and what they will do. And those things have been quite revolutionary in the way that we increase our return on ad spend and a return on investment.
I was going to say ad spend is another topic that comes up. It can be expensive depending on the channel that you're choosing. Are there channels that you think are underrated or unused by a lot of tech startups? One, I always say Reddit is one where Reddit ads seem to do really well, but people forget about it because it's Reddit.
Yeah, I think more and more people are getting onto Reddit, and the younger generation especially is fueling a ton of engagement on that platform. So that's just one area. I always recommend starting with social ads to get a great feel of who your target customer is. Compared to, for example, display ads, a social ad has so much information about their target customer because we put so much out there on social. So they know a lot about you from a psychographic perspective, not just your age, gender, location, and type of device. And so from a volume perspective, it's also one of the more affordable places to get some initial data. So I always like to run some initial test campaigns on social, whatever social platform that is, and get a great feel of who is responding best to your target within your target audience. And then once you figure out who is responding best, then you can take that information and grow that marketing plan on other platforms as well.
Yeah.
Are there other channels then too that you see as underrated or unused?
In general, I
Yeah.
think PR is probably the most cost-effective top of funnel impression, and it's also super credible. And what startups think is that you need a PR agency to get going. And at scale, PR agencies are amazing to get you a ton of different placements,
Mm-hmm.
but there are a lot of tools that you can leverage, like Prowly.ai, where you can download your entire media list. They won't tell you for their free trial what the email addresses are, but you can reverse engineer that using AI again. But you could find out everyone who's talking about your product and then start to pitch them. So there are a lot of ways that companies can actually access some of these journalists straight on without the need of a heavy retainer on PR just to get started. And then over time, as they scale and grow, then they can leverage a PR agency to help them with that.
That's a really good point, because oftentimes people shy away from PR. Well, I don't know anybody at this paper, or I don't know anybody here. They're not going to pick it up.
Or they think they don't have news.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, another great tool is featured.com, and featured allows you for free to answer 3 questions from journalists across the world. And so you could just answer a question that's relevant to your product or service and have a chance to get featured there as well. So there are a lot of opportunities for startups who might not have someone who has that connections to still get featured in a number of different places, or even write to some of the outlets directly. Like a lot of outlets take opinion articles. And if you're a tech startup, you're probably building something that's unique and different.
Yep.
You probably have a unique point of view. And that unique point of view could be really well articulated in an article or opinion article and pitched to a number of these publications.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I was going to say, speaking of unique point of view, as I was researching you for the notes for the podcast, I did find out you're an accomplished artist.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and so
art has been my passion.
I was checking out. I mean, it's beautiful work. I was looking on your Instagram. We'll include that in the show notes. But tell me a little bit about like how do you balance that? You know, marketing is creative, but like you have 2 creative outlets. How do you kind of balance that you can have energy for both? And do they influence each other?
I have a boundless energy. I have a lot of energy. So in general,
We'll have to talk about how you
I
get
don't
all
think
that energy.
Yeah, it's the 8 hours of sleep. I am committed to my 8 hours of sleep, but I do have a lot of energy to kind of pursue a variety of different things. But art has always been my passion, and I think that's what gives me a little bit of a creative edge on the marketing side, is thinking differently. Because ultimately, startups need a way to activate with very little budget, and that requires a ton of creativity. But other things that street art kind of gives me is the ability to communicate and grab attention really quickly. And so you really have to figure out what is the message that you're trying to convey, and how do you grab people's attention immediately, whether it's the imagery, colors, the design, or shock factor, right? And so those are things from a visual perspective, but how does that translate into your marketing campaigns and what you're doing? These same kind of ideas really follow through on the marketing side. And then on the marketing side, I think the idea of thinking about who your target audience is has really influenced my art. Like, who am I creating art for? And so the street art is really for the people of Toronto, to make them feel happy as they walk by every day. So my message is all about, creating joy and creating happiness. And hopefully when they walk by my pieces, they have a little smile. They're, energized a little bit. And so you still want to have a message. You still have to think about your target audience, and they both really go nice hand in hand.
I was gonna say, like I saw a couple of pieces on Instagram. Street art is such a powerful way of connecting with a community. Do you take any of that then to when you're having engagements with your clients?
So some of my clients have asked us to do murals within their companies. And what's really fun is I really like to make sure that all of the employees are also engaged with those murals. I know at Communitech you have a lot of great art also up on your walls.
We do.
But I also just like to make sure that the people who are absorbing the art every day get a chance to be part of that. And that mural then becomes something that's significant for the company. So we'll work together, figure out, what are their key values? What kind of things do they like to do? What do they stand for as a company? I'll work on creating a visual, and then we'll tape it out and make it an easy activated piece for all of their employees to also participate in. So they have a piece that, means something to them and is connected to all of the individuals in the company too.
I love that.
So kind of switching back gears a little bit back to marketing, the one thing that I was really hoping we can kind of talk about today is there's a lot of advice out there. You work with a number of clients of different sizes, from probably single person startup all the way to, scaling companies. What is one thing that you want like a founder to know today about marketing, and whether that's they're getting started, they haven't maybe totally thought about brand yet, or about, visual identity, or maybe messaging, but like, what's the thing that a founder should know as they're doing customer discovery and as they're thinking about, how to fund the thing?
I think the biggest thing on the marketing side is that you don't need a huge budget to get started with marketing, because everyone thinks that marketing is a spending group. And so when you're always thinking about marketing as spending, you're not necessarily seeing all of the opportunities that you could leverage marketing for. For example, our fractional CMO model has opportunity for part-time marketing leaders to sit in your company on an hourly basis. You now have access to incredible talent and people who have done this before just to guide you. And a few hours a week can make a huge difference. And so it doesn't take a huge budget to activate these kinds of resources, and it gives you a great upside. These people would sit, for example, in-house on your team. They would build your internal resources and capabilities and coach you so that over time, you're now slowly growing your customer base, but also slowly growing your abilities to do marketing. And so when you need a new marketing channel or you need a new marketing activation, it's not like you're working with an agency where you have to increase your spending. You're able to grow this within your personnel that you already have on board. And this creates long-term relationships with your employees. They become super grateful that you've invested in them, but it also creates stickiness. And so now that they're in charge of, for example, all of the marketing activities, they now feel that resonance with the business. And so I think it's really valuable to build internal capabilities versus rely on external parties. This is also really important because marketing data that lives inside your company is so much more valuable. If I know who's clicking on these ads, I can tell the product team, these are the things that these people like, and I can be a little bit more prescriptive. Or I can work with the customer service team to say, these are the social media challenges that we're seeing in the comments. Maybe we need to adjust these messages. So that marketing data also stays in-house. And ultimately, these other activities that you can build are all in your own hands. So you don't necessarily need to leverage other people to do them.
Well, Roshni, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to have you on the podcast. We'll have links to your site, your artwork as well, and a bunch of other things, all the sites that you mentioned that I'm going to go look at actually after this. I didn't know about Proudly AI.
Can we also share that Pro Squad members actually get a 1-hour free strategy call with Prosh Marketing? So if you need any advice on your marketing, feel free to connect with us, and we provide a free 1-hour strategy session where we can review all of your marketing activities and give you some ideas also.
Yeah, love that. And Prosh Marketing is listed on our website, so you can connect directly with them through the website, or you can connect with us at partnerships@communitech.ca, and we can give you a connection to Prosh as well.
Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to connecting with you again. Hope to have you on the show again.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.